Welcome to the last module of this workshop, Module 4. In the previous module, we discussed moderation in the ICAS. In this module, we are going to look at the verification of marks. ICAS does not elaborate much on this, but the verification of marks is important in order to ensure the validity and reliability of the ICAS. In this module, we will cover Introduction, the importance of evidence, evidence to be kept for the NCV programs, evidence to be kept for Report 191 programs. The verification of marks. The role of campus management in the verification process. Conclusion. The first session is largely about evidence because it will deal with Introduction, the importance of evidence, evidence to be kept for NCV programs, evidence to be kept for Report 191 programs. We have already looked at the planning, setting, and marking of assessments, as well as the recording of marks. What would happen if we did not record those marks accurately? Then the whole process would be inauthentic or unreliable. The importance of evidence. The recording of marks has been discussed in Module 3. In Module 4, we will look at keeping evidence and the verification of marks. It is important to keep evidence to prove that marks have been recorded correctly and reliably. There are a few differences in the evidence to be collected for NCV and Report 191 programs. We will look at NCV programs and thereafter at Report 191 programs. Evidence to be kept for NCV programs. For NCV programs, both the lecturer and the student must maintain a portfolio providing evidence of engagement in ICAS tasks. Make sure that you keep both the portfolio of assessment or POA for the lecturer and the portfolio of evidence or POE of students up to date as this will be monitored. You should use Annexure K of the ICAS templates. As lecturers, each one of you must have your own POA containing this information. A contents page. Lecturer information like name, qualifications, SACE registration, teaching or lecturing experience, and workplace experience. Your year plan. The latest version of the assessment guidelines. The subject assessment schedule, Annexure A. All ICAS tasks accompanying marking memoranda, guidelines, and lists of resources required to complete particular tasks. A completed pre-moderation checklist for each of the ICAS tasks and their accompanying assessment tools, Annexure H2. A completed post-moderation checklist once the task has been administered and assessed, Annexure I2. Subject record sheets per level, class, reflecting the marks achieved by the student in the ICAS tasks as they are completed, Annexure J. Evidence of electronic capturing of ICAS marks. Evidence of review, meaning diagnostic and statistical analysis, including notes on improvement of the assessment task for future use, Annexure N. Students' attendance registers. Evidence that repeaters' work, tasks have been assessed. It looks like a lot of work, but for most topics there are templates which can just be completed. When it comes to the portfolio of evidence of a student, colleagues may exercise one or two different options. Either Option 1, which is a POE per student per subject, or Option 2, which is a POE per class or level per task. Remember that the POE is required as evidence for monitoring, moderation, and verification, and option 1 must contain the following details. Table of contents. Student information like full name and ID number. A declaration of authenticity form signed and dated. A subject assessment schedule, Annexure B. All marked ICAS tasks responses, for example, marked scripts, answer sheets, computer printouts. Evidence of moderation where applicable for those students whose tasks were moderated. A record of scores, marks, results. Assessment scores must be recorded effectively to ensure their conversions and transcription of marks are correct. A consolidated record of performance sheet, Annexure L, indicating the raw mark achieved per ICAS task, as well as the converted mark per ICAS task and the total out of 100 in a tabular format. You should also take note of the following. Firstly, in the instance of an artifact, evidence must be safely stored and available on request. Secondly, a completed assessment tool, for example, a rubric and/or checklist reflecting student performance should be used where applicable when a marking memorandum has not been used to assess student performance. The second option is for a POE per class level or per level task. This means that all the evidence for a specific test, assignment, task, or exam is inserted into one file or envelope. This must be done for each task. The file, envelope, should clearly state the type and number of the assessment, the date on which the assessment was given, and the class or group or level. Inside the file or envelope, you should include all this material and information. The task, assignment, test. A marking guideline, rubric, marking checklist, assessment tools. A marking sheet indicating type and number of task, date marked with marks filled in. Student names on the mark sheet should be in alphabetical order based on ID numbers and surnames. The test, tasks to be numbered and put in the envelope or filled in the same order as the mark sheet. Students put their full names and surname, ID numbers, date, and type of assessment at the top of their task answer sheets. One copy of ID and declaration per student should also be kept at a central or campus administration office. It is extremely important that all evidence be secured on-site for a period of 6 months following an examination cycle. This is for verification purposes in both the process and during departmental visits. This brings us to evidence to be kept for Report 191 programs. Lecturers, you are required to maintain a subject file and an assessment file, and you have to keep the actual scripts and assignments and artifacts in storage. You should refer to Annexure G4 in the ICAS templates. Do you still remember your own frustration where lecturers took ages to mark your scripts, or as a matter of fact did not even hand them back? Students should receive their marked assessments back within a reasonable period of time, normally not more than 5 working days. The memorandum, marking guidelines should be discussed with the students. The marked scripts should then be handed back to the lecturer for safekeeping and storage. Here is a suggested method of keeping evidence. Use a file or envelope that states the type and number of assessment, the date on which the assessment was administered, the class, group, level. Include the task, assignment, test. You should have more than one group of the same subject. It could be put in one envelope. A marking guideline, rubric, marking checklist, assessment tools. A mark sheet indicating type and number of task, date it was marked, and marks filled in. Student names on the mark sheet should be in alphabetical order based on ID numbers and surnames. The test tasks should be numbered and inserted into the envelope or filled in the same order as the mark sheet. Students should indicate their full names and surname, ID number, date and type of assessment at the top of their task answer sheets. The evidence should be stored on-site for as long as the year mark is valid. That is for at least 2 years or until certification takes place, which may be longer than 2 years. You need to make sure that both the Report 191 and NCV program's assessment scores are recorded effectively. The weighting of tasks is correct. Any transcriptions of marks and conversions are correct, and that there is a clear indication of which candidate scripts were moderated. This is very important. This brings us to the end of Session 1 of Module 4, in which we covered a brief introduction and the importance of evidence with details of what types of evidence to keep for NCV and Report 191 programs.